I'm going to show lots of crisp arc shots like this in this video on carbon steel, stainless steel, as well as aluminum. And I'm also going to try to give just as many tips as I possibly can while I'm doing it. So what you see right here is pretty much the whole lineup of Furick cups, and I'm going to go one by one, showing applications, what they're good for, and give some tips along the way. The biggest benefit of using this cup is just that it's clear and it kind of lights everything up, just kind of like a light bulb, and I'll show you that in just a minute. You can use this cup with either a 920 or an air-cooled 17 style torch. I'm using the 17 style air-cooled right here. You might notice here that I'm changing the arc length as I go along every time I add filler wire. I'm doing that on purpose. It's a little technique that I came upon, and it helps me keep from putting wire into that tip of that electrode. The height of the puddle grows when you're adding filler. A lot of times it'll grow right into the tip of the electrode. This technique kind of keeps that from happening. Now notice here the cleaning, the etching lines aren't very big. It's just got very minimal cleaning. That's fine. Some people like that. That is something that you can achieve easier with a number 5 cup. That cleaning etch zone tends to only go where there's argon. Hey, listen, before we get on with the rest of the video, if you're struggling to learn how to TIG weld aluminum at all, I've got a free welding guide for you. I'll put the link in the description of this video. You'll come to a page like this. This is my latest PDF download. Got a nice table of contents. It's all laid out ABC 1, 2, 3 in the right sequence to help you learn better. Let's get on with the video. Let's talk a little bit more about that same lap joint in this number 5 cup. You can see that tungsten glowing up inside the glass cup. It really is like a light bulb, kind of lighting everything up. And when you switch over to a pink cup, it definitely is like somebody dimming the lights. So if you're having trouble seeing, sometimes clear cups can help. I'm overlapping that corner by a good bit because aluminum just tends to want to do that. It's hard to make a tiny, tiny bead with aluminum on 1/8 thick material like this. But again, the number 5 cup tends to really limit that cleaning etch line. Another situation where a number 5 cup seems to excel is getting full penetration on a butt joint. You do have to tune your argon to get the right amount of flow. You don't want too much gas or you'll get an erratic arc. But when you got that argon set up right, that etch line is kind of confined. It seems to kind of concentrate the energy on the puddle and help you get full penetration on a butt joint like this, full uniform penetration. Now, how do you tell when you're getting full penetration on a butt joint? Well, let's take a look at that. This is thinner metal, and so I'm using a 1/16 setup here, 1/16 electrode. But watch that puddle, especially if I slow it down here to half speed. That puddle sinks and then rises, sinks and then rises. And you got to watch it sink to make sure you're getting full penetration, because the metal is going to the back side. That's why it's sinking. That's just a subtle cue. It'll fool you sometimes. Here's another shot. Again, this is a pink cup. They perform just as well as the clear. They just don't light things up quite as well. But this is a pretty good shot of watching that puddle sink for a full penetration butt weld. Watch it. See it sinking there? It's kind of exaggerated a little bit. Sometimes you might not want it to sink quite that much. But I wanted to get full penetration on this particular joint, and so I wanted it to sink. Let's watch that again in half speed. Every time I add rod, it fills it up a little bit, but then you can see it drop a little bit. Now you can get carried away with this and wind up with a concave weld, so you got to work that foot pedal. Next up are the 7 and the 8 clear cups. There's not a lot of difference here. I kind of lean toward the 7 for aluminum. Both of them are good all-around cups for both DC and AC applications. They do light things up. And I know I've said this probably 20 times on videos, but I started using these clear cups mainly just so I could film a good welding shot, a good arc shot, because they do light things up. But I discovered pretty early on they help me see better. I mean, they really light things up, and I'm in my 60s now, and I need all the help I can get. Flow meters can vary. It depends on a lot of different things. It depends on how long your torch is and all that, and if you've got any restrictions in the line. But it's a good idea to test your argon flow no matter what cup you're using to make sure you're getting optimum cleaning for a given cup. Now in this case, I used a 7 cup, and I tested starting at 15 and going all the way up to 30 CFH in 5 CFH increments. And I didn't change anything on the machine, but the cleaning action, the cleaning path changed drastically. So I wound up settling in at somewhere between 25 and 30 CFH, and that gave me a lot cleaner puddle than the bead that I ran previously. This is the outside corner joint that my friend Andrew Carden ran after we dialed in the argon flow for that particular cup and got a nice clean bead with just enough cleaning on the toes. Real quick here, let me show you what's involved in switching over to a clear cup like this Furick number 7 or number 8. You need a Furick adapter kit if you're using a 17 torch, but what you get out of it is a much smaller torch head that fits in a lot tighter areas, and with the clear cup, it just lights things up and helps you see a lot of detail that you might miss otherwise if you're having any trouble seeing. Here's half speed. I put lines on this practice piece here. I find that it's very helpful for beginners to kind of establish a rhythm and establish a consistent travel speed. And I think it helps people watching the video kind of gauge how fast I'm going. This is a number 8 Pro on carbon steel. The cup is really lighting things up, and you can see a lot of detail, even the grind marks. You can see where I used the grinder to clean the mill scale. With carbon steel, if you don't get the mill scale off, you just don't get as good of results. With aluminum, sometimes you don't need anything. Sometimes a simple wipe down with a dry shop cloth is enough. Sometimes you need a little acetone. There's always somebody that says you should have wire brushed it, but not all applications will tolerate wire brush marks. This is the number 8 Pro on that same lap joint. It's going to do just as good a job as the clear number 5 did, but you will notice a wider cleaning path here. That's the biggest difference. The weld itself doesn't look too different. The two different cups require slightly different gas flow rates, but both of them do a good job. Getting to the end here, I'm going to swirl this arc around a little bit so as to try not to leave any crater holes or anything like that. You can see a little bit of fine porosity try to rear its ugly head. That's pretty typical with aluminum. Again, this weld looks just about like the one with the number 5 cup, but it's got a lot wider etch zone. If you're learning how to TIG weld, I highly recommend you padding beads. This is just an exercise that you can get more practice out of a little bit of metal, and it'll help you. And you can see that clear cup lighting things up. If you're having any trouble seeing where you're going, seeing how to overlap the previous bead, seeing things like that, I think a clear cup could help you. If you don't have any trouble seeing, there's really not much benefit in a clear cup. In fact, coming up in just a few seconds, we're going to start talking about some ceramic cups. To start with, this is the Jazzy 10 ceramic, a great all-around cup for chromoly, carbon steel, and stainless steel. The secondary diffusers up inside there's 2 screens. Furick has even got a patent on the way that he forms the diffuser screens. But having those additional diffuser screens in addition to the gas lens screens lets you get great coverage even when you have to use a long stick out. A tip for stainless steel is the 3-second rule. That just basically says get the puddle established and moving within 3 seconds. 2 seconds is even better. So sometimes that means hitting it with quite a bit of amperage right from the start and then backing off a little bit so that you can get moving and outrun that heat. That might sound counterintuitive, but sometimes when you try to start off really slow at low amperage and build the heat up really slow, heat builds up so much that you can't outrun it because stainless steel is not very thermally conductive. Another application where the Jazzy 10 works great is TIG brazing with silicon bronze. Clean metal and good gas shielding are 2 of the keys to a good TIG braze. And the thing I like about the Jazzy 10 is that it hardly takes any more gas than a number 8 gas lens. So you don't really use any more gas, and that's because of those secondary diffuser screens in there. Usually I can get by with about 20 CFH. If I'm using a long stick out, I'll use maybe 25 CFH. You can even use it on some small titanium jobs. This is a titanium test, but I'm using an aerospace fixture, and I've got chill bars right next to the weld. So even with the number 10 cup, it's pulling the heat out of that titanium really quickly, and I'm winding up with a silver weld, whereas without the chill bars, I would need a much larger cup to do that, or I'd have to stop every inch or so and let it cool. There's also a clear version of the Jazzy 10, same diffusers, same cup size, same performance. I tend to gravitate toward the ceramic just because of its cost and durability. You get some benefit of the clear cup from being able to look through it sometimes when you're welding in a corner. it doesn't light things up quite as much as the 7 and the 8 or the Alley 5. This little freeze frame shows recommended arc length. Rule of thumb is electrode diameter or slightly less for your arc length. The other two main factors when you're learning how to TIG weld are torch angle and keeping the hot tip of that rod shielded in the argon. And it's much easier to do with a Jazzy 10 cup or something like that than it is a much smaller cup. This is just a padding beads exercise, but actually it's fairly common. A build-up operation like this is fairly common to repair tool and die, injection molds, and things like that. Here I'm tapering off that amperage, always a good habit to get into. Taper that amperage down to almost nothing, and then hold the torch still and let that post-flow gas flow. Let's take a look now at the ceramic 12, also known as the FUPA 12. I didn't name these cups. I have a hard time saying FUPA 12, so I usually call it Furick 12. All I know is a great cup for 4130 chromoly stainless tool and die steels. It provides a really large blanket of argon, a large shielded area, and that helps with chromoly and stainless and tool steels a lot, especially when you're coming over it with a second pass. This ceramic 12 cup along with the ceramic Jazzy 10 are two of my favorite cups for 4130 chromoly. You can get by with a crazy long stick out, even longer than this, and still get good gas shielding, and that's important when you're welding up on those crotches and those tight angles. This is a plain carbon steel T-joint, but I've got it clamped down to an aluminum chill block just to really illustrate the point how good a shielding you can get when you got a good cup with good shielding as well as chill bars, pulling that heat out of there. If you want to, you can pretty much achieve a color-free weld, a silver weld. All depends on what your goals are. This is the clear FUPA 12 with the titanium cover. This is the first cup that I got from Michael Furick when I met him at FabTech in 2014. He put one of these in my hand, and I went home and tried it out and started selling them on the store not long after that. The thing about Michael Furick is that he's a motorsports fabricator. He knows what works and what doesn't work, and he tests things. So I know when he comes up with a new cup or a new product that he's tested it 6 ways to Sunday and proves it out, vets it before he puts it on the market. That's what I like. This cup works great. I tend to lean toward the ceramic version for most of what I do, again because of cost and durability. This is just a simple T-joint on carbon steel, but look at that long stick out while I'm maintaining great gas coverage. It's a great cup. All right, this is the MK14 ceramic. There are a lot of applications for a cup this size, some of which would be Inconel 625 in the motorsports industry, aerospace welding tests, stainless steel joints, exhaust collectors, anywhere you want to limit the discoloration and you need to get a long stick out at the same time. This is a aerospace test joint, a practice joint in an old fixture that I cobbled up when I first started testing welders at Delta Airlines. I was kind of under the gun, had to get something going really quick, and I had a request in to get some legit fixtures made, but I had to start testing welders, so I made this in about a day, and I've still got it. Still works great. While I was training and testing welders for Delta Tech Ops, we kind of stumbled upon a cup that was made by a mom and pop outfit that was similar in size. We could hardly get them. We used those cups for test welds of stainless, nickel-based alloys, titanium, cobalt-based alloys, but they became really popular in the hot section shop, in the general welding shop, even in the blade and vein shop, in the stator shop. And the reason is that they tend to clean up the weld when you're welding the kind of alloys that you weld in aerospace that have small quantities of aluminum and whatnot in them for hardenability, for precipitation hardening. This is the glass version of the MK14. I don't have any shots of that. And so the last two cups here are the ceramic and the clear BBW. This is the ceramic. There is also one that's made of high temp thermoplastic called a Sippy. I'm using the Sippy right here. It's kind of unbreakable, which is a big deal if you've got employees that tend to break a lot of cups. But this is a titanium joint. This is a 2G position or horizontal. You want to get a discoloration-free silver weld when you're testing on titanium. There are some limits for discoloration. You can get by with a little straw depending on what code you're welding to. But you want to have a silver weld. That way you know you're not going to get disqualified on account of discoloration. And again, that is not just the cup size and the gas flow and argon shielding, but it's also where you position those chill bars, what type of fixture you have, what type of material the fixture is made out of, how quickly it pulls the heat out. This is the clear version of the BBW. It's called a BBW SG-19. Got a brass insert. If I were taking an aerospace welding test on titanium, this would be my preference for a cup. Great shielding, visibility, got it all. I would say the two main things that'll fail you on a test like this on titanium are if you don't get full penetration, because it can be deceiving. You don't want to add too much filler metal, or that can prevent you from getting full penetration. The other thing is porosity, and that is mainly caused by not properly cleaning your metal. You have to file that sheared edge. Another good application for the BBW clear is titanium bicycles, titanium tubing like this. This is Mike Zancanato making a titanium bike frame. You got to hold that thing still and let that post flow time out. You want a silver weld on any titanium weld like this, and it takes a long post flow to do it. Remember to click that link in the description if you need a free download of a TIG welding guide or any other welding guide. They're free for the download. I put a ton of work into these. They're all good. I believe they'll help you. Thanks for watching.